Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, I'm going to be continuing our journey through a number of maps about a specific U.S. state. Last time, we saw an older map from Oregon, and now I have a set of maps from another state in the West Coast, and that is Arizona. I have a couple of maps, some of which I'll share today. And depending on how we do on time, I may save these other ones for later. We'll have to wait and see. I'll move these off to the side for now. So these two maps are similar to the one that we saw last time. They're for the entire state. Tell two different stories about the entire state. This is a highway map primarily for getting in and around the various cities and towns. And this is a different type of map. It's a recreational map for people who want to enjoy the many different places to hike or canoe or camp out in the wilderness of Arizona. Let's start with our highway map to get a sense of location. This map is being quite pesky. It's folding in on itself. So we can't quite see the entire map in one sitting, unless I lay it horizontal. And even then, you can't see the whole thing. So instead, we're going to fold this and focus on the southern half first. Now, Arizona was one of the last states to join the Union. It was originally land owned by the Spanish Empire, and then land that became part of the Republic of Mexico back when it became independent from Spain. And then, after the Mexican-American War, it became part of federal United States land. Most of this northern portion. This southern portion here was purchased from Mexico at a much later date, much later into the 19th century. And then from there, the state of Arizona was established. The central area of Arizona, the most populous area, is around its capital of Phoenix. Phoenix is part of Maricopa County. Which also contains most of the, in fact, I would say all of the suburban sprawl surrounding Phoenix. Phoenix is quite an oasis in the desert, and we'll definitely get back to them in our second video. But around Phoenix itself, you have Scottsdale, which is quite a fashionable suburb. You have Tempe and Mesa and Gilbert and Chandler and Queen Creek, all along the southeastern area. To the northeast, you have Paradise Valley and Fountain Hills and Cave Creek. In the far north, you have Anthem. And then in the west, you have Surprise, Sun City, Peoria, Glendale, and Goodyear, and Avondale, and Buckeye. The main corridor for the highway in this part of Arizona, the southern portion, going through Phoenix, is Interstate 10. Which begins in the Los Angeles area, far out to the west. It snakes its way east to west, like all even-numbered, or most even-numbered interstate highways. It travels east to west, or in this case, west to east. And as a highway with a 0 at the end, 10, Highway 10 is part of the major portion of the Interstate Highway Network. And it is the southernmost of the major interstate highways. In the U.S. interstate highway system, even numbered highways will typically go east to west, and odd numbers go north to south. If you recall from my Oregon map tracing video, you will remember that on the far west coast, you have Interstate 5, which is the lowest of the odd ending highways that end in 5. So it is the westernmost major interstate. Of course, that means that on the opposite side is Interstate 95 along the far eastern coast of the U.S. And here in the even numbers, we have number 10 on the far south end of the U.S. And on the generally northern end, you have Interstate 90. And we can't really see it well, but the last exit here on Interstate 10 is 390, meaning that this route travels 390 miles across the southern edge. But that isn't the only major highway here. In fact, it's not the lowest numbered interstate, because we have Interstate 8, which begins its life far out west, one state over in California, in the San Diego area. It joins Arizona in Yuma, and doesn't quite make it to the Phoenix area before joining and ending its journey at US 10 in Pinal County. We also have another short branch here at Interstate 19. These are the interstate highways after all, which goes from Nogales, a town on the border with Mexico, all the way up to Tucson. Tucson is second to Phoenix in terms of largest metropolitan areas in Arizona. And it is still quite a reasonable city. It definitely is a city. It has its own suburban sprawl in Vail and Summit and Sahuarita. And it's also at the end, as we said, of Interstate 19. Moving back to Phoenix. Going north from Highway 10, we have Highway 17. This interstate goes due north, roughly, of Phoenix through Anthem. And if we follow it north, we can see it continue to go past Black Canyon City. Past Camp Verde, past Sedona, though it doesn't go through Sedona, and meeting its end at Flagstaff, which is definitely a small city or a large town. And here at Flagstaff, we meet our last interstate highway at Interstate 40. Now here, just north of Lake Havasu City, we follow US 40 to Kingman, a major trucking town. We follow it to Flagstaff. We go to Winslow and Holbrook. And we go all the way to the border with New Mexico at 359 miles. So still east to west, but slightly shorter. You can tell by the fact that it ends in a 0 that, again, this is a major east-west artery for the interstate system. North of Interstate 40, much of what the state has for highways is much more focused on the U.S. highway system, older system, and the state highways. And in general, that's also true for the areas directly south. Where you see a lot of mountains, especially in these areas. Much more on the western side than on the eastern side, but there are still plenty. And we can see that we are not too far away, even on the edge of Arizona, from other major cities, primarily Las Vegas here. Which is separated from Arizona by specifically Lake Mead, a dammed lake on the river, dammed by Hoover Dam. Farther along the river, we also have Lake Havasu City, which is, in my mind, most well known for having the original London Bridge. And we also follow the river as it continues down past the far edge of Yuma, down into Mexico, where sometimes, though not always, in fact for a good part of the 21st century it has not done this, but where it sometimes leads to the Pacific Ocean, with a number of large cities surrounding it, primarily Las Vegas. Water is especially precious in Colorado, and sometimes the river does not make it all the way to the sea and it dies in the desert of Mexico. But sometimes, and with some good water control programs, it has finally reached the sea again sometimes. We are going to move on from this map now that we have introduced the state. And of course, we see some smaller maps to outline the cities in greater detail, much like we saw with the Oregon map. And we continue on with the recreational map. Now, what you'll see here, most notably, obviously, we have a lot more varied use of color, a lot more meaningful use of color. So here, these pinker areas are urban development, particularly in Tucson and Phoenix. We have this orange land, which is land owned by tribal nations. So here we have the Tohono O'odham Nation, land of the San Carlos Apache tribe, the Gila River Indian Community, the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation, and the Colorado River Indian tribes. These are a gray area of sovereignty within the U.S. because they do, under varying laws and treaties, run as independent nations, but they do rely on the US for some services, such as some highway involvement, international display, international relations as well. And it really varies from nation to nation. What they're given relations are to the rest of the world, rest of Arizona, the rest of the nation. In addition, you'll see a lot of different markings here. They might come across a little small on the map, but they all mark a place to visit. It really shows how absolutely many places there are to visit here. These purple symbols are owned by the National Park Service, which runs the national monuments like Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument, as well as national parks like Saguaro National Park near Tucson, Casa Grande Ruins National Monument, of course, the grand finale, which will come at the end. There are also yellow areas here that are owned by the Bureau of Land Management. And purple areas, no, not purple, green areas, which are governed by the Forest Service of the Department of Agriculture. As we get farther north, we get to see lots of clusters of attractions. As the land gets more mountainous, as the variety of the land increases away from the aridness of the desert that is most of Phoenix and Tucson and those areas. You get into the mountains and you get into the great beauty of the state. Doing the best thing with the map, but so be it. So as we get further north, we get into mountainous areas. Montezuma as well, Montezuma's castle. We get again into Sedona and the Coconino Forest, National Forest area, which we will see in the next video. We have a ton of areas in Prescott National Forest around here. And then if we get north of Flagstaff, we see the greatest sight of them all, the Grand Canyon. Which is carved by the same Colorado River. That fuels Lake Mead, that powers Las Vegas and Lake Havasu. And Lake Powell, farther upstream in Utah. This is the landmark of Arizona. And even on the maps, as we saw at the beginning, the state trades on being the Grand Canyon state. It truly is an otherworldly, magical place to be. And as a national park, it is overseen by the Park Service. And surrounded by National Forest, Kaibab National Forest, as well as a number of other nations, the Havasupai mainly, and the Hualapai around the western bend. And speaking of indigenous nations, Arizona is also the largest portion of the largest nation in the contiguous U.S., which is the Navajo Nation. Out along this area, you have Petrified Forest, another national park. And beyond the border into New Mexico, you get the continuation of the Navajo Reservation. It leads out among the many states that border and within the Navajo Nation, right in the near this southwestern edge, you also have the Hopi Nation, which is a separate people group within the borders of the Navajo Nation. And they even have a little enclave of the Navajo Nation within them. promised land. There are a number of major locations, mostly Antelope Canyon, Monument Valley, which are both very picturesque locations frequently seen on social media, and the Canyon de Chelly, a national monument, and another dramatic, though less widely known, landmark. I'll leave you with one final fact about the Navajo Nation, which is that most of the U.S. follows daylight savings time, meaning that the people of most states in the U.S. bring their clocks forward an hour in the summer and set them back an hour in the winter. Arizona, being farther south in the contiguous U.S., does not participate in daylight savings time at all. However, the Navajo Nation does. So while the rest of the state is not on daylight savings time, including the Hopi Nation within the Navajo Nation, they also follow Arizona and do not do daylight savings time. The Navajo Nation still does. And with that, I believe we've covered the most salient points about the state. If you would like me to go into further detail on any of the parts of Arizona that we have seen today, please let me know, and I will try to follow them up in my next video. Actually, I take that back. I will try to follow up with them on a later video, because my next will be about side areas, places to explore, specific places to explore in Arizona. All right. Thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.